Welcome back to Combat Mission Black Sea, Eeyore's Plight, Part 2. This is the continuation of the blue-on-blue, small-sized meeting engagement between myself and Usually Hapless. If you haven't seen Part 1, I recommend you watch that first for context. Part 1 ended at turn 8 with a full 120mm mortar barrage onto the bad guy side of the Overlook Woods. Mosley's platoon is grouped and poised to assault the woods with support of 2 Bradleys and fire support from an Abrams, a Striker, and a couple of infantry teams that are at admittedly long and mostly ineffective range. This is a more detailed view of Mosley's platoon at the start of the assault. The 3 half squads are ordered to advance, followed shortly after by the 2 Bradleys. The machine gun team already has some line of sight down the ridge, so they will hold in place until the infantry stops. Mosley will follow, trying to stay close enough to give support, but far enough back not to take fire. Bad guy artillery lands right where my West Bradley had been parked, breaking the machine gun team. But that Bradley gets a first spot on a stationary bad guy Bradley and scores some penetrations. Here is the view of the encounter from the bad guy side. Unfortunately, the bad guy vehicle is able to pop smoke and reverse out of danger. Meanwhile, as Mosley's East Bradley advances, the leading infantry team spots another bad guy vehicle. The bad guy vehicle spots my infantry team, but strangely, not my Bradley right next to them that is area firing the javelin team. Bad guy Bradley kills a few of my infantry, which reveals it to my Bradley, which targets and destroys it with 1 autocannon burst. And then it goes back to finish off the javelin team. Well done. Here's the situation at the start of turn 10. This Bradley I believe is dead, so I have my East Bradley ignore it and order it to area fire more trees looking for hidden infantry squads that I believe are hiding there. My westmost infantry team spots another javelin team, and I will area fire them with my West Bradley. I also got a sound contact for the 3rd Bradley that I thought was in these woods, and I'm hoping one of my infantry teams can kill it with an AT-4. Turn starts with my Bradley advancing and then reversing to get line of sight to area fire that javelin team. Also my machine gun team that got already last turn recovered, so I order them forward to get line of sight downrange. Time for another pause. At this point, I finally became fully aware that these 155mm artillery strikes were not random, but were being directed through a drone targeting my units at the start of every turn. I had bought 2 Stinger teams to prevent that, but obviously they were not working. Which brings me to the title of the game. I had a few different thoughts on this. Overlook Gauntlet, Overlook Meat Grinder. Both were okay, but what I really wanted to name it was...
What is happening around here today? Are gringos falling from the sky? Yes, guapo.
Where Amigos is an acronym for American Military 155mm Ground-to-Ground Ordnance. But that would not fit into the YouTube title section. So I had to go with Eeyore's Plight. And at this point in the game, I had a very distinct and not actually wrong feeling that I was going to spend the next 50 turns with a deadly cloud over my head. But instead of raindrops, this cloud dropped precision-targeted 155mm artillery on my helpless units. If this was a real battle, I would have instantly retreated. But it's a game, so Eeyore's Plight it is. Back to the assault on Overlook Ridge. My East Bradley finished area firing, then adjusted to the left. The plan was to engage with my 2 Bradleys against his 1 at the start of the next turn. Meanwhile, my center infantry half squad got line of sight on the Bradley and hits it with all 4 HEDP rounds, but they appear to have no effect. On turn 12, I do push both of my Bradleys forward with the dual purpose of engaging the bad guy Bradley and also avoiding the Amigos that I know will be targeting where I stopped. However, something went wrong and my East Bradley gets destroyed. Fortunately for me, things go bad for Hapless as well. His Bradley once again targets my infantry that is right next to my Bradley, which allows my Bradley to target and destroy him with one blast of autocannon. At this point, I decide I have to get my last Bradley out of this kill zone, and I do a crazy navigation through the trees and over the craters, and actually manage to get him away to open ground. After the assault, I'm down to one half squad and Mosley's HQ team on the far side of Overlook Ridge. A counterattack right now from Hapless would have been really bad for me, but I assume I inflicted at least as many casualties on him as he did me. It's a good time for an overview of the entire map at turn 13. On the far right, I send a Bradley to grab my right Stinger and bring him to Overlook Ridge. I'm hoping two Stingers will have a better chance to spot that pesky drone. I have spotters and a Javelin on this ridge, waiting for some bad guys to kill. This is one broken survivor of the machine gun team that tried to get to Hapless's Cemetery Ridge woods. He's about to die. In town, I'm cautiously pushing forward, expecting to run into a target arc, but I need to find his men. Here on the back of the map is my crack and vet platoon, hiding and waiting for the critical moment of the game that I'm sure is yet to come. And these poor men, well, they are going to have to go into the Overlook meat grinder to reinforce Mosley's platoon. Hapless never did counterattack. In fact, the next 13 minutes is a series of cat and mouse exchanges. Me trying to avoid his amigos, while at the same time trying to kill his spotted Bradleys and find his extremely well-hidden infantry. So let me take you through some of these exchanges, starting with my side of Overlook Ridge. I ordered a crack sniper team and a vet infantry squad into this Bradley. The vet squad is going to be rushed over the meat grinder to join Mosley's platoon. The crack squad grabs a Javelin because there is a good spot to get line of sight on one of the bad guy Bradleys that is parked on the opposite side of the map. Eventually the crack sniper team gets into position and has line of sight on the Bradley. I went to bed this night excited to finally kill one of those Bradleys, but when I woke up I knew it was not going to work out, and sure enough, my morning self was correct. Time for another pause. I have to confess, at this point, I started whining over email to Hapless.
Somebody call the ambulance.
In my defense, that off-map artillery landed 11 seconds into the turn. It takes on-map 120mm mortars 27 seconds to exit the tube and land 425 meters away. 27 seconds. This off-map artillery had to travel at least a mile just based on the map size, and it got there in 11 seconds. And I thought Hapless was having to readjust the spot every time I stopped a vehicle. I didn't know at that time that you can target a vehicle and the spot will move with it. So I stopped my crying about those blown up units just in time to almost rage quit on the next turn. On the reverse slope of the right side of the map, I had a vet squad hiding under some trees, away from everything, acting as a reserve in case Hapless moved in force on this side of the map. Out of nowhere, it was turn 42, and my hiding men are just getting blown up, and I actually have to endure this for another 30 turns before Hapless moves out to finish me off. That seemed like not very much fun. But I'm not actually the rage-quitting type of person, so I just sucked it up and kept going. And some things did end up going my way. One of those involved this bad guy Bradley in town. For 20 turns, I had a vet half squad creeping through these thick trees to get line of sight on Hapless's side of the town. I assume Hapless got a sound contact because he reversed away from the woods. But I had an elite Javelin team waiting with a tight target arc. The bad guy Bradley spotted the launch, but it was too late for him. Destroying that Bradley in town allows me to try again at getting into the trees that go to the Hapless side of the Cemetery Ridge. So a green half squad gets the order to go. And they make it this time. This is potentially a significant swing in my favor. Back on Overlook Ridge, the crack sniper team with the javelin recovers, and they rush back to the spot that has line of sight on that back corner Bradley. Amigos target them again.
Roger. Fire mission request. Out.
But they are crack, and this time they get the javelin off. The Bradley pops smoke, but again, it's too late for that. Remember Hapless's artillery strike on my hidden vet squad that almost made me rage quit? It turns out that was actually friendly fire. You can forgive me for not realizing the spotting round was 1,200 meters away from the target, which happens to be a bad guy Bradley in these backwoods. Mosley's one remaining half squad on the far side of Overlook Ridge called in an 81mm barrage on that Bradley. I had no idea if that is a good use of 81mm mortars, but we went for it. Turns out, I think Hapless got a little unlucky here because the very last shell from that barrage penetrates and destroys his Bradley. That makes 5 bad guy Bradleys destroyed. Of course, the game hasn't completely turned in my favor. Hapless's drone probably spotted my infantry hiding on his side of Overlook Ridge, so another Bradley shows up and wipes them out without warning. And then there is the constant threat of amigos falling from the sky. The bad guy Bradley pushing onto Overlook Ridge finally gives me something to do with my Abrams. Since the time I realized the threat of the Hapless precision drone strikes, I've been driving my vehicles around every turn in completely random and mostly useless ways. 1, because I still have yet to find any infantry to target, and 2, I cannot let them sit somewhere and turn to scrap metal. To hunt the Bradley, I give my Abrams some advance and pause orders. But I know that Hapless has javelins in those far trees, and I don't want to expose myself for more than a few seconds. The only thing that Abrams ever sees is one infantryman, which gets blasted. And I'm amazed I survived this navigation problem. But I can't stay in that kill zone for more than one full turn, and I retreat back to safety. Status at turn 31. I'm probing further into the backside of Cemetery Ridge, but I know there is a bad guy Bradley here, so I can't go much further at this time. In town, I pushed most of 2 platoons to the far side of the town objective. Still no sign of Hapless's infantry. I assume they are somewhere in this tree line. I decided it's time to make another assault on Hapless's Overlook Woods. If I can secure that, Hapless won't be able to get infantry into the town objective. The plan for the assault has a lot of parts. First, hit these trees with a full 60mm mortar barrage. It probably won't break anyone, but hopefully it will pin the javelin teams. Smoke this line with my remaining 81mm smoke. Push all these infantry units to this line. Covering fire with my striker from here. The Abrams will go hunt for that Bradley. My Bradley will go into the woods to hunt for bad guy infantry. And the last piece, which actually worked, I had this sniper team fire on some bad guy infantry here, and then I left them in view. I hoped one of his 155mm batteries would target them, and it did for a couple of turns during this critical time. The 60mm barrage has a 4-minute call-in time, and during this wait, my favorite part of the game happened. Turn 1, Hapless drove a Bradley here. I never saw any infantry units, but there had to be some in those buildings. I was able to find a semi-keyhole from the top of this ridge to that building, and I sent the Abrams in. The result, which is from the end-game map, 3 dead bad guys, and a wasted javelin too. Haha! Of course, I didn't know that at the time, and I immediately withdrew the Abrams. On turn 35, the 60mm and the smoke start landing, and the assault on Overlook Woods starts again. The Bradley is carrying some fresh infantry squads. Infantry is pushing to the west to complete the L-shaped kill zone. The Striker is moving to the far side of town. And the Abrams is coming for that bad guy Bradley. Unfortunately, my infantry hoofing over the ridge gets amigoed and pinned. And then killed. Turn 36. The Striker sprays MK-19. An infantry team attempts to cross from town to the woods, and they make it. The infantry on the Overlook Gauntlet that was not killed last turn continues the assault. Led by a destroyed Bradley crewman. They run into that bad guy Bradley, which goes really poorly for the infantry. The Abrams is coming to the rescue, navigating craters and trees, looking for that Bradley. But he still cannot find him. He spots an infantry team and blasts them. The Bradley is right there, firing on our infantry, but no spot. He does spot another javelin team in the far woods, and he blasts him, but takes out a tree instead. My suppressive fire doesn't pin this javelin team, which targets my Striker. And the launch, but the Striker lives. Let's watch that again. The javelin also hits a tree. Things end poorly for that javelin guy on the next turn. Turn 37. I have infantry and a Bradley screening the woods in front of the Abrams, so I order him to reverse into the trees and then go about halfway down the hill. But none of that is necessary because the Bradley comes hunting for the Abrams and is quickly dispatched. With the Bradley out of the way, this infantry squad tries and tries and tries to kill this one pinned bad guy. But then they get amigoed, and they go into the fetal position. Bad guy recovers first, and chases my entire team up the hill. And that's it. I had the ceasefire button already pressed since I controlled the objectives, and the game ends with a major good guy victory. And then I noticed that if this guy had crawled another meter, maybe even a total victory, because the Cemetery Ridge objective was left unclaimed by anybody. Now, Hapless did have some very bad luck. He had those two Bradleys that decided to shoot my infantry instead of my Bradleys that was right next to the infantry. He had that one Bradley that got knocked out on the very last mortar round from my 81mm barrage. And probably the craziest of all, his javelin that hit a tree instead of my Striker. And who knows what other bad luck that I haven't even seen. And he definitely had the much harder initial deployment location. But despite all those bad things for Hapless, for me to go from almost rage quitting to an almost total victory makes me feel like Will Smith in Independence Day.
That's right! That's right! Who's the man? Huh? Who's the man?
However, while smoking my virtual victory cigar and considering the post-game map, I slowly changed from Independence Day Will Smith to this Will Smith.
Oh, wow!
Let me explain. This is a map dominated by city and woods, and Hapless has a total of 8, that's right, 8 3-man scout teams as his infantry force. There is no way, if Hapless was trying to win this game, that he takes a force of 8 3-man scout teams. So for him, this was more like a test battle, a mock battle.
Are you mocking me?
Maybe for Cockneys in the old world, things are different. But in America, well...
I can promise you, that dog don't hunt.
In fact, just to be clear about this...
You besmirch the honor of my family, and I demand satisfaction.
Okay, all joking, false bravado, and fake outrage aside, I really do appreciate Hapless playing this game with me. Our between-turn banter was fun, and I learned quite a bit. He has indicated that a video of our battle is in the queue, and I'm excited to see that. But also, the gauntlet has been laid, because I do demand satisfaction. Thanks everyone for watching, happy gaming, and keep moving forward. Infantry squads that I believe are... the Magine.